Hi everyone, this is Amy from Pretty Presets, and I am going to spend a little time right now answering your questions that you had on today's post for Manic Monday. These questions I'm really grateful for because they were questions that I have answers to just right in my head. They weren't like super technical questions, so thank you for that. I'm just going to go through and answer them to the best of my ability. If there is information that I leave out, then I'm more than happy to start a thread, and if anybody else wants to elaborate, they can. But most of these are pretty easy to answer, and I'm not going to go in any particular order. I wrote everything down on my notebook, so that way I can just cross them off when we're done. Okay, so let's go over how to make brown eyes pop. Every member of my family has brown eyes, except for my husband. So whenever I edit any picture with my children, that is, sometimes I edit pictures with my family and sometimes I don't. A lot of times I don't actually, just because they're just natural, and they're snapshots more or less that I'm going to put into a book, or that I'm going to have 4x6 prints made of that aren't something that are going to be on a huge canvas or something. So I'm not going to go in and edit every single picture that I've ever taken of my family, because that would just be too much time. So what I can tell you is what I do when it comes to making brown eyes pop. I will go to each eye and I will adjust the exposure just a teeny tiny bit. I mean, really, just like a little bit. And then I will take the eyes sharpen brush and I will apply that to each eye. When you go into the, if you have the pretty, I think it's the Pretty Portrait brush set. I think everybody should have that set, by the way, if you don't own it. When you're done watching this video, go buy it. It is the best set that you can have because it really helps bring out the detail in people, and it helps just kind of bring everything together. I don't know of a single woman or, senior in high school that doesn't want to have her skin touched up just a little bit, or her eyelashes just stand out just a little bit. Every single brush in that collection is made to help you have the best looking clients you can have. That's why none of them are over the top. That's what I love about them. It's not like the skin comes out looking plastic. So anyways, so those brushes are in that set. So I would go in and I would, just like I said, apply just a little bit of exposure to bring that up just a tiny bit, and then use the sharpen brush for the eyes. And that's generally what I do with most eyes, to be honest. Just because, hold on a second. Hey, hun.
Yeah.
I'm recording a video.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I will use that on most of my eyes. There are other brushes that you can use. That I believe there's one for blue eyes and one for green eyes, and there is a catch light brush. I really do like that one as well, because you have to make sure that there is some kind of light in eyes. Otherwise, they just look like black circles. Even if you use the catch light brush in eyes that don't have any light, it won't really do anything. That catch light brush for eyes is meant to enhance what's already there. So don't think that, oh, I didn't get any catch lights in the eyes. It's okay. I'll just put it there when I'm editing. No, it's not okay. You have to have some kind of light in the eyes. That's you should know that that is something that you have to have. So make sure you have that. Drinking Dr. Pepper this time instead of water. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So I do a little tiny bit of exposure and then I sharpen the eyes. Next question is templates in Lightroom for cards, postcards, Facebook covers, etc. When it comes to those things, as far as like presets, we do have a template for the Facebook timeline. That is something that we have a template that you can use for that. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. When I'm done with the video tonight, I'll put a link up for that, or if you don't see that up, then I'm sure somebody else could find that video to put up. But there is a link that I can get you to put up for the Facebook timeline template. But as far as cards and postcards and that kind of stuff, you don't generally do that stuff in Lightroom. That is not what Lightroom is intended for. It's really intended to edit photos. I know that there was a thread a couple days ago where somebody wanted to know how to add text for a birthday card, and I commented and said you really can't do that, and then somebody else commented and said that that they could. And so what they did was they linked a tutorial on how to put text on a photo in Lightroom by using the watermark space. And at first I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. I've never thought about doing it that way before, so I'm anxious to see what that would look like. And then the photo was posted with that, and just like I thought would happen, you can't have any control over something like that happening. You don't have any control over, like, different fonts that you can use, centering this but not centering that. You don't have as much control. So I personally don't, I wouldn't encourage it. I wouldn't advise it. I do all of that kind of stuff in Photoshop. I don't do any editing in Photoshop. I'm kind of Photoshop illiterate. I know how to do like some of the bigger stuff, like swap heads and some cloning and things like that. But in Photoshop, I mainly use it for like graphic design and doing templates and like my welcome packets and things like that. As far as like doing your basic editing and stuff, I have no clue how to do some of that in Photoshop. I don't know how to do any of it. So back to the original question. There really aren't any templates for cards and postcards and such in Lightroom, because that's not what Lightroom is meant to do. It's meant to just edit photos. So I'll mark that one off and the other one. Okay. There was a question about saving presets to Dropbox and if you could include your brushes too. Absolutely. I don't see why you couldn't. Dropbox is there for an online kind of cloud storage system, so I don't see why you wouldn't be able to include your brushes as well. I know that in the folders that I get when I get a new preset, if it has brushes in the preset collection, it's all sent over together as one folder. So think of like the Color Lux collection. That all gets sent over to you, and then when you open that up, then you see like your brushes, and you kind of see anything else that's added to that collection. So there's no reason why you can't just take that one main folder and then upload it to Dropbox. So I don't see why that would be a problem to also have it include your brushes. And that brings me to another point that isn't really said in any of these questions, but make sure you back up those files, like your downloads, all those presets that you download. We see a lot of times in the group how computers crash or files disappear, or there's all these things that can happen. I've had it happen. I had all of my files crash one time. I lost everything. You know, I lost years of my own family's pictures. So this was before I was a professional photographer, but I lost a lot of information and I was heartbroken because of it. So you need to make sure that you're backing up your files. Make sure that when you come home and you're coming home from a session, that you are downloading those images. I have mine set up with Lightroom that it goes straight into Lightroom and straight onto my my hard drive, and then I do a backup copy onto my external hard drive, and then you can do another copy onto an off-site like cloud version, whether it's Dropbox or I want to say Blaze. I don't know if that's correct or not, but I'm kind of drawing a blank on what there is out there. But anyways, you want to make sure that you're backing up your files so that if that does happen, you can just go to where you back them up at and you can just retrieve them. It's so much easier. So make sure you're doing that. Okay, how to adjust a matte preset. This is one I don't know if there is a tutorial on this. I know we've done a tutorial on how to adjust presets. For matte presets specifically, you will notice that if you look on the tone curve, you'll see it's going to be backwards the way that I draw it right now, but you'll see that there is a line and it goes up and over and then it goes up. So that part that's like straight right here, that's the part that is controlling your matte look. So if you want to adjust that, you want to adjust that part that goes straight across. Achieving a matte look has to do with changing the shadows in your picture. And so when you're looking at the tone curve and it goes like this end over here, just keep in mind I'm backwards, okay? This end over here are your lights, and then this end over here are your blacks. And so when you want to adjust the matte, like I said, you go up and you see this line. It's like it's straight across. You can't miss it in the tone curve. Straight across. So that shows you right there that your matte looks, they're being achieved because you have some tweaking that's going on right there with your shadows and your darks. So you've got that line that's right there, and then the rest of it usually, kind of goes up like this. So just take that line and just kind of like play with it a little bit. And that's really how you do it. I can't sit here and say, well, move it up 0.3. That doesn't work. One, because my preference is going to be different than your preference. For different presets that are matte finished, it's going to be different. So, just keep that in mind. You want to make sure that you are just adjusting that little part. Now, I will say this. Sometimes in pretty presets, you can't really tell what adjustments have been made because everything shows as being like right in a line like this. So I will say, and I don't have Lightroom open right now, but I will go on the record as saying I don't know if that same little line is going to be there for pretty presets. I think it will, but I'm not for sure. If it's not there, just know that what you have to play with are your darks and your shadows. So you can even do that with the sliders, or you can still do that with the tone curve. You can go to the end and start just playing with it there. Kind of take it down, take it up, just play around with it. That's really the best way to learn Lightroom, really, is just playing around with it. That's what I did. You just play around with it. Okay, let's see. Files are large due to new camera. Should I make them smaller? No, you do not need to make them smaller. There's no need to do that. You'll just have larger files. One thing that you do need to be aware of is that it's going to take up the memory on your hard drive faster because you're now uploading larger files. So make sure that you have a place that you are saving them to on an external hard drive or somewhere off of your hard drive, because otherwise it's going to eat all that memory right away. So hold on. So you want to make sure that you are saving them somewhere else. What I do personally is when I do a session, I have my raws, and then I am editing, and when I'm done editing that session, I export all of them. So now they become JPEGs. So I have my raw files, those are my original files. And then I have my JPEGs because I've edited them and I've exported them out of Lightroom. So now I've got 2 files of the pictures. I do in-person sales with clients. So once I am done with the in-person sale and we go over what they want, I fulfill the order, and usually about a month or so later, I go back in and I delete all of the raw files. And some people are like, why do you do that? Well, I do that because if those pictures were not important enough to them to order, they are not important enough to me to save. I'm not one to like go back and play with old images. I do have one folder that I have saved over the last couple years that does have raw files on it, so that if I do want to go back and play with images, I can. But I'm just not one to do that. It's like coupons. Like coupons come in the mail and I'll cut them out and I think, oh yeah, yay, I'll save so much money next time I go to the store and bring my coupons. But I never bring the coupons with me. So I just throw them in the trash now, honestly, because I'm never going to use them. I have accepted that. That is my reality. So I go with it. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with deleting those raw files because, like I said, they were not important enough to the client to save. So they're not my memories, they're not my people. So my own raws I tend to keep for a long time because I still need to go through them and sort through them, and that's my goal this summer, by the way. I still need to like sort through everything. So anyways, but yeah, you can bring in all those big giant files that you have from your brand new camera. There's no need to make them smaller because when you export them as JPEGs, you want them to be, you know, a good size file for your clients. So you're good on that. Okay, understanding brushes. Somebody wants help understanding how these brushes work. I had Lightroom for probably 2 months, or not 2 months, 2 years, before I even realized what the heck a brush was. Mainly because I didn't have awesome groups like this to help me out. I had a couple forums that I was in and you could ask questions, but there wasn't anything that was like specific to brushes. It was like, you know, ask questions that you need to ask under different subjects, but you know, I wasn't going to ask a question on brushes because I didn't know that they existed. I had no idea. So once I found out that they existed, it was like a whole new world for me, because those brushes, they make everything pretty. They really, really do. I don't think that there is a session that I do now without using the brushes in some form or another. You can say you have I did a wedding this last Saturday, and they had this beautiful kind of like arch thing that they built, and it had this nice like white sheer something that that went over the top of it, and then they had flowers that came up around, and they have this beautiful chandelier that was in the middle, and the priest stood in the middle, and the couple was right here. And I remember they told me, they said, oh, and the light's going to be perfect. It's going to be coming right in on us as we're saying our vows. And I'm thinking to myself, that is not perfect. I do not want that sun right on you as you're saying your vows. But that's how they wanted it. So the sun coming through that material, though, when I went to go edit a couple of those pictures, it was completely overexposed for that area. I wanted my exposure to be correct for the couple, but in order to do that, it was overexposed for where the curtain part was. So I can't increase the exposure on the entire photo because everything else looked great. It was just these curtains. There was just so much light. It was just crazy. So what I did was I used the exposure brush and then went up to the curtains, and I just kind of like, you just fill it in. You make it bigger, you slide it over, you can change the size, and then it's like coloring. Think of the brushes as like coloring when you were a child, right? Who doesn't love to color? It was like my favorite thing to do at my grandma's house. So think of brushes as that. Think of brushes as like your own little coloring box where different colors, different tools are needed for different pages. So you take that exposure brush and you color over where the sheets are, and now they're not overexposed anymore, and I didn't have to sacrifice the rest of my picture. So that's what brushes do for you. They help control those little areas that you can't do like a blanket edit on. You can't just take the exposure slider and increase it or decrease it, because the whole picture doesn't need that. Only those sheets needed it. So I colored over them. It's the same thing if you are using, say, the Color Luxe brushes. I love that set. I love the brushes in that set because they're great for outdoor photos that you really want to capture some of that rich quality. You can think of like, old trucks and grass and, just some of that nice, rich, the color and the detail that you want to capture. With the Color Luxe brushes, that's exactly what you can do because they have like every color in there. Like I said, it's like your own little coloring box. So you can go in there and you can collect, you can get whatever crayon you want and, go over those areas that need it. Say you've got this, old beat up truck that you've got in session with a senior, and you really want to bring out that blue in the truck, but you don't want to make him blue. So you can't really like increase the blue saturation, right? So you're going to use the brushes for that. You can use that brush, that blue, I don't remember the exact name of it, but you can use that blue brush to go over the truck, and then you can use an Add Clarity or an Add Detail brush to go over it again. And then you've got this really amazing picture with this awesome looking truck because you took the time to color it. For the portrait brushes, they're awesome. I use them mainly on my seniors and brides because it is like putting makeup on somebody very lightly. What you want to do is the skin smoothing brush, I don't ever adjust that. I don't ever like take it down or take it up. If there is somebody who has really, really, really bad acne, then I will, but generally I just do one swipe around the face with the skin smoothing brush, and then I take the Add Clarity brush and I go over the eyebrows and I go over the eyelashes, top and bottom, and then I do eyes sharpen on both eyes, I will add, if they're really dark, I'll add a little bit of exposure like we had talked about earlier. And then depending on what's on their lips, I will maybe do like lips rosy on their lips. And then if they had bags under their eyes, then I will use the skin under eye, I don't remember the whole name of it, but it's the under eye brush. And so then I will go back under the under eyes and do that. I always make sure with the brushes with the face not to just stop here, but to go down a little bit down to here so that it blends in nicely. That's what I do for all of my faces. And it adds a really nice natural look. Nobody looks fake. Parents are always grateful that their daughters look natural and that they, that they don't look like, someone who wears a ton of makeup, because 17 and 18-year-old girls don't need to look like that. Brides already have a ton of makeup on generally, so really what you're doing with the brushes then is you're just enhancing what's already there. So I hope that helps explain what the brushes are for. They're your box of crayons to just go and color in and add detail to different areas. Okay, this last one we're going to talk about has been something that's been going around the group, I've noticed, for a while. It went around about a little over a month ago, and then it kind of died down, and now it's going around again. So when I see it going around, I try to comment on it because the thinking behind it is incorrect. And I think sometimes when we're given information, we need to make sure that the information that we're given is accurate. This involves the cropping ratio and exporting it and how all of that works. I'm going to tell you what I do, and then I'm going to explain why this other theory of stuff that's been repeatedly said in other posts is not correct. When I have all of my edits done, actually let me back up. When I have a photo and say say there's like something off to the side that I want cropped out, I will then click on the crop, and then I will, go like this so that it crops, it crops it out. But I don't choose a size. There's like, I can't do this. Anyways, there's the corners, and it's like you can go, and then if you go if it's a horizontal picture like this, and if you go at one point, it can turn and go vertical for you. Sometimes that's a good thing. I do that sometimes. But the point is that if you've got your corners up here and you go, because you're trying to get rid of this thing that's over here, so you kind of want to go in, and then you're basically recomposing the photo to get rid of something over here. Or say the person, say you want the person to be right here, but instead they're over here. So you're trying to get them to be where you want them to be. So you'll crop it in order to fix your composition. So that's what I will do. I won't crop it at an 8x10 or crop it at a 5x7. For me personally, I've never had a need to do that. I know that the option is there. I've never had a need to actually do that though. So, and that's just me. I'm not saying that's for everyone. I'm just saying for me personally. So I'll make whatever, cropping adjustments I need to. And then I select all when I go to export, and then all as in the ones that were flagged and that I had been editing, not like all 2,000 pictures from a wedding. And then I export, and then it takes me to my export dialog box. When I'm in that dialog box, you have the chance to resize your photos. So I do not mark the box that says image resize, and you have the chance to fill that in with different pixels, and like you can put it as an 8x10 or 5x7 or whatever. I do not check that box at all. You should not check that box at all. Just leave it blank. And then next to that is where you can choose the resolution, if it's going to be like 72 if you're putting it on the web, or 300 if you're choosing it for print. So we're going to think we're going here with print, okay? So I've chosen nothing over here. That box is not checked. And then I've chosen 300 for print over here. I'm done. So we're not talking about like sharpen or any of that other stuff right now. We're simply going to talk about sizing. So I'm done with sizing now. But what seems to be going around in some posts is this idea that when you're editing, you should crop everything to an 8x10 so that clients don't screw up their photos. No, do not do that. The reason being is that should not be your decision to make. When you crop an image to an 8x10, you are automatically making a decision that your client is going to want all of their pictures as an 8x10. Not all of my clients get 8x10s. Some clients choose 20x30s, 30x40s, 4x6s. So why would you limit them to what they can order? Or why would you want to say, because you're going to screw up your print job, I'll just put everything as an 8x10 for you? No. That's why you shouldn't do that. That should not be your choice to make. If your clients are not printing their images correctly, or if you're getting a call from them saying, I don't know what happened, I printed these as an 8x10 and half the people got chopped off, you need to be educating your clients. That's what needs to happen. You don't need to be chopping people out. You don't need to be resizing everything to an 8x10. You don't need to be making them multiple folders and having one folder for 4x6s, one for 5x7, one for 8x10. No, none of that. You should be educating your clients. You should be letting them know that if they choose not to order prints through you, that this can happen. And you have opportunities to do that. Every single photographer has an opportunity to do that. Because if you don't order, say you're a photographer who all you do is give your client a CD, okay? And you don't do prints, so they don't really have a chance to order prints through you. That's fine, but you still have a chance to educate that client. When you have been emailing that client, you can send them something saying, here's a handy crop guide that I made for you that I want you to be aware of when you're making your prints. Most places, when you go to print, Target, Walmart, most of those places, if you put a disc into print, you see lines where the cutoff is. So if clients can't follow that, and if you can't educate your clients to know that difference, then that's on the client. That's when the client has to take responsibility for what they are or are not doing. We as photographers owe it to our clients to educate them and to help them understand that cropping is totally fine to do, but that you have to know what that ratio is going to end up looking like. You just have to know that. That's something that you learn. As a photographer, it's something that you all need to know. If you don't know it yet, then you need to learn it. You need to learn what different ratios are. A 2x3 is the standard. That's what your camera automatically puts out. So anything else that goes by a 2:3 ratio is going to be exactly like it would have come out straight out of the camera. but there are other ratios that are different. So please stop advising people to crop everything and export them as an 8x10, because it messes things up, and your client should have the best quality photo they should have. So if you crop at an 8x10, how is that client supposed to print something that they want as a 20x30? So you have to think about that. You have to think about what your responsibility is as a photographer, because we're providing a service. We provide them something that they want. It's a luxury. This is not something that they have to do. It's not something that is life or death. This is a luxury for them. So for someone to choose to spend money on us, that's a blessing for us, and we owe it to them to educate them. Start giving your clients welcome packets when you book a session with them, or when you give them their CD. Include something in there about that aspect ratio. Include something in there to visually show them that these are going to be the differences. Each size is going to look something different because of how you crop it. So I hope that helps. I hope that that explains it a little bit more. So I think that's about everything that we have for this week. So hopefully you have learned some things. Hopefully you haven't left me by now. And I am glad that I was able to sit here tonight and to talk to you. And looking forward to doing it next week. Thanks. Bye.